Hello, good morning, everybody. I hope you all are having a good Monday. And this is my weekly podcast. And last week I didn't do it because I got caught up with my homework, and I thought, well, just forget about it. It just sometimes you can't do it. Oh well, right? That's part of the practice. And okay, here we go. So today, I will start with a little story. I think when I was at the Blue Lotus Temple, I've told this story before. Um, two, there were two Zen masters lived in a little kuti, a hut, uh, and they meditated, and it was a very small place, and so they would sit there and practice day and night, and so they were very very good friends, and then they had a companion, a cat. So whenever they practice, um, whenever they sit to their daily meditation practice, and the cat would come and disturb them, and so that became to a point that they couldn't take it anymore. And so the cat would come and jump around, and he would purr and do all kind of crazy stuff. If you have cats, maybe you can relate to it. So they had to decide what they have to do, because it became to a point that they couldn't take it anymore. So they talked to each other, and they decided that before they sit for their practice, they're going to tie up the cat. So even though it seems not the right thing to do, but well, a story is a story. So they would, before they sit, they would tie up the cat, and they practice, and then after the practice, they release the cat. So this happens for a while, and so as long as they lived, they would tie up the cat, sit down to practice. After the practice, they would release the cat. So years went by, and the teachers died, and new Zen masters came in, and they were practicing, and they had a new cat, and so they started to do the same thing. And before they sit down to practice, they would tie up the cat, and they would practice, and then unleash the cat. And so centuries went by, and Zen masters would tie up the cat, and so now all this is a new place and new masters, and they would tie up the cat and sit down to practice. So centuries after, a teacher would write a book, tying up the cat, mindfulness practice. So if you think about this story, it's a little funny story, but there is a lesson that we can learn from this little story. When the first two teachers started to tie up the cat, they had a real reason behind it. They were disturbed by the cat, and they had maybe a hyper cat. Some cats are like that. It's just like some people, some people are hyper, and so they have too much energy. Some of them are not. Some of them are just very mellow and laid back, and they understand. And some people are not like that. So cats are the same. You know, they have on their personality. So the first teachers, they had a real issue, a problem, and so that's why they started to tie up the cat. But the teachers that came after those teachers with the new cat, they started doing the same thing. And so after that, after lineage, after, so this happened for centuries, and they even written books about it. So think about this for a moment. We do the same kind of thing when it comes to our day-to-day life, with our how we live our lives. And when you think about things going on in the society, in cultures, with our practice, and this is a very practical matter because when we start things that we have a real reason, there is a cause why we do things, why we want to go to a doctor, and why would want to take a medication, and why did you want to go to the temple? Why did you want to start yoga? And so we start with a real reason. There is a cause, and we start it, but then we fall into a pattern, and we don't see that we fall into a pattern. That's the dilemma here, because that's where um, ignorance comes in. That we fall into a pattern and we just roll with it, and we don't question afterwards. And it's just become, doesn't matter how hectic it is, doesn't matter how difficult it is, doesn't matter the outcomes, we just do it. Because why? We've been doing it for so long. And I see this happens with the population that I work with a lot, because um, their lack of ability to understand, comprehend things. And when they fall into something, they want to do it exactly the same way. And if you take a shower at 6 o'clock, they want to do it 6 p.m. on the dot. Otherwise, if you change it, it's like the biggest change that they make in their life. So this happen in our lives too with our practice. And if we don't pay attention, we just fall into things that we stop questioning, and we stop looking for answers. We just do it. But it's not the Buddha's way of doing things. And if something doesn't make sense, that you have to always go back and raise questions, and always keep that enthusiasm. Always be uh, aware of the situation, what's going on. And so the mindfulness actually is something like that. It's sati. It's a Sati is a word that I think probably one of the words that mostly used in the teachings, in Buddha's teachings, when he talk about um, when he taught to the community, he talked about mindfulness a lot. So the mindfulness is basically, there is no hard, uh, it's not any hard thing to do. Mindfulness is just basically paying attention to our day-to-day activities, paying attention to our thoughts, paying attention to our behaviors, reactions, and how we create karma. And so when we pay attention, we are vigilant, we watch, we are aware of our situations, what's going on. And when we are aware of things, we can break the habits, we can break the patterns that we create. And when we do that, it brings actually our anxiety level down, because we know exactly reasons, we know what exactly going on at the moment. So when we don't question, what happened is we just happen to believe things. And when something is stuck in our mind, and we just feed into it over and over and over the years, that belief lead us to a something really big. It's become a really big part of our life. And at the beginning, we when we something start something like that, we have had a real reason behind it. But over the years, even though there is no connection how we live today and how we lived like 10 years ago, but still we keep doing it because we haven't questioned and we haven't go back and reviewed what we have been doing and the progress we made and why we still want to keep doing it. And so this happens with our um, mindfulness practice. And I see that people do that a lot. And when people start mindfulness practice, they have um, really good reasons. And then they really enjoy being mindful, being aware of, practicing awareness, mindfulness. But then afterwards, they just fall into really a pattern and they stop questioning and they just do it. Just just heck of it. Just just um, so, so it's very important to understand, I think, when we do things, always to question each moment. So that um, if we don't do that, that sati, mindfulness, uh, we are not doing it right. Because mindfulness is about asking, why am I doing this? Why this is happening? And always this awareness, being aware of the moment, each moment when things happen, physiologically, psychologically, and when we move on with our lives, when things take place, and figuring it out. And when that happens, we can live our life more meaningfully. When we do things, we can always do things in a meaningful way, not just falling into a some type of a ritual. And so this is how we create rituals. This is how we create cultures. This is how we create disorders. And so it can like if it is a negative thought that we have had and so um, when we do that this memory over and over and over when we do that physiologically when you think about it in the brain there is with all these thoughts there is areas that our thoughts connect to brain and so with these memories it just go back and we rerun it. And when we rerun it, and it's become a very strong um, a memory, a habit, pattern, and its effect physiologically, it changes the chemicals in the brain. And think about something like post-traumatic disorder, even though they don't understand what exactly the cause of a post-traumatic disorder. But that's according to what they know, that's what they think. The scientists think that the memory of the event that happened, a traumatic event that had happened, it brings us back to the moment over and over. So that creates distress in the brain. So physiologically and psychologically, and we become permanently damaged. And so we have this vulnerability, and we all have that. So when we deal with day-to-day life, and so that's why I think in Buddhist teachings that he talks about that you are on your savior. So when he said that savior, it's not a religious connotation. It's just a very, very important thing to grasp, understand, because when you are become on your savior, you are responsible for your own actions. So when he described the actions, he said that so there are physical actions, there are um, mental, psychological things that we do, and there are verbal, that how we express it. So we have to pay attention to all these things. When we do that each moment, we can break these habits, how we create these things. So uh, if we can do that, I think we can be more, um, we can live our lives more meaningful way, as I said before. And so we can drop things that doesn't make sense, and we still can move on with us. So the mindfulness practice is very important. It's a key actually in Buddhist teachings to live a happy and a healthy life. So um, just like the those Zen teachers tied up the cat, there are sometimes that we do that with our lives, and we fall into these patterns. We create on our, rituals, and if we can eliminate those things and be um, in the moment, paying attention to each um, moment that we live, when we do things, if we can engage with things fully, and so it's possible to enjoy our lives in a very meaningful way. And I hope that this give you some kind of an idea that what's actually the mindfulness is about. It's about being aware of the moment, that way we can um, break those habits, patterns that we fall into, and that gives us a new perspective for each day, for each moment, for each month, for each year, and so that we can live our lives in a very meaningful way, not falling into um, you know any kind of ritual kind of behaviors or patterns. And so I hope this will get you through the week and give you something to think about. And you all have a beautiful week and good Monday. And I will see you next week with a new podcast. Thank you. Have a good day.